Hello, my name is Peter Parfitt. Welcome to the new Brit workshop and this Bandsaw Xtras video. And I'm talking about the Axminster BS11-INV bandsaw, which I have here. Now, I've got a piece of the Festool 36mm hose, which I keep specially for my jet bobbin sander. I thought, well, wouldn't it be a nice idea if this connected just perfectly into the extractor port on the bandsaw? But alas, it's just a little bit too loose. So what I did was I took a piece of, you remember that pipe that I used to make my dust extraction system in the workshop for the dust hub? Well, I took a small piece of that, cut it through, and then brought the pieces together and then tried that, and it worked. I actually had to put a tiny bit of masking tape around it. And then, lo and behold, I found that I could now push in my Festool extractor hose and that would stay there quite happily. Now, my Festool extractor is an auto start machine. Now, because I've got the inverter version of this machine, when you first apply power to it, it's going to draw some current as it charges up the various capacitors and gubbins inside the inverter. So don't be surprised if you have one of these machines and you connect it to your Festool extractor. You hear the extractor start up as this is drawing current as it gets itself ready for operation. And that's perfectly normal. Well, the next thing I want to show, which I was unable to show in the main video about the bandsaw, is some scroll work. And I've got installed here the narrow woodworking blade. And as my task, I've got this. And I hope you can see the pencil lines I've put on this piece of wood. If you imagine it represents the top piece at the back of a chair. And you've got a rounded section on each end. And then between the two is the gentle curve on the inside where the person's back would go, and on the outside the matching bit of curve. Now, because of the relatively narrow section here, it's just over 250mm, it means that it's going to be impossible to do things at this end going that way, or just about impossible. But even so, I think you'll find that with a little bit of thought, you can get a lot more out of a small machine than you could imagine. Well, that was the first task, going along this inner edge here, and these outer curves here are pretty good, really. You saw me having to back off slightly because with any blade you don't want to try and over cook it as you go around the corner. So that's the first part, and now continue. Now, what I did was on the back here, where I had to come in from two directions, I made sure that the place where they met, those two different cuts met, was on a place that I could easily clean up later. And so actually that's pretty good anyway. And that's it done. It was my first attempt at this particular shape. I might tackle it slightly different next time. I lost a little tiny bit of filming in the middle of that. I apologise. I forgot to press the button. Oops. But there we go. The scroll work on the ends here, I think is pretty reasonable. A bit of sanding on the ends there. Make sure any joins between, when you're going from one direction to another, are done in an area where you can easily get at it to sand. The difficult parts on this would be these corners, but it's cut fairly cleanly into them. And I think with a scraper with some sandpaper wrapped around the edge of the scraper, you can get in both sides of that and clean that up nicely. For a quick demonstration, that's not a bad finish really. Excellent. Now I've just put my wider blade back in here, and in order to do that I've loosened off the motor mounting, and now I need to get it back again. Now I find this quite tricky. So what I've done is I've put a bit of webbing belt around the motor close to where it's connected to the chassis, and I've got this stick pass through my bit of webbing, and I'm able to put a bit of leverage on to get this motor reasonably tight. And I'm just going to tighten up now this Bristol knob here, and that's that done. And I'll just check that my tension is good on this side, and that is super. So that works okay. You do need to be careful if you're doing something like this, because I've made sure my webbing belt was quite wide, and I made sure it was close to where the motor attaches to the chassis. You cannot do it over at this end because that will put too much leverage. Also, make sure that when you're doing this, you're not catching any of these wires in your arrangement. So that's it, that's done. All I've got to do is remove this now, and we're ready to go. It probably wouldn't come as any surprise to you that I've been asked already if I could demonstrate this machine doing a veneer cut at its maximum depth here. I've got a piece of wood. It's the widest piece of wood I've got. It's actually 150 millimeters, even though the capacity here is 160. I hope you don't mind that odd 10 millimeters. Now the way I've got this set up is I've got a pair of feather boards. They could be used individually or as a pair, as I've got them here. They're a set which I got from Axminster a long time ago, and it calls itself dual axis feather board. So it's all set up, everything's tightened up, everything's as it should be, and I've got my speed down at a modest level, not too fast, and here we go. I've also got my push stick. The important thing is to keep this up against the fence. And there we go. I hope you can see that that is pretty good. Now bear in mind, when you're going to make veneers like this, you will always start by having a planed edge on one side. And then after you've done one cut, you'd run that past the planer again, and so you've got for the next cut a planed edge. And that's the way to continue. That way you can stick your veneer on this side, and then whatever it's stuck to you can then finish off on this side, because most planing machines have difficulty planing things as thin as this. And that is, I think that's about 2.5, maybe 3 millimeters in thickness. Now when you're cutting longer pieces of wood like this, it is absolutely crazy to either attempt this on your own or to try it without some form of extension to the table, because once you get to the balance point, then you're not only having to control the wood as it goes through the blade, but you're also having to keep it well balanced, and that starts to get dangerous. That's a very sharp blade and you might hurt yourself. So it's really important, if you're on your own, to have some form of outfeed table. And that is precisely what I've got here. This is my outfeed table. It's folded up at the moment, and you'll notice it's keeping itself all tucked up because of this stay, which stops it opening out accidentally. If I remove this stay and put that to one side just for now, and now open it up, you can start to see exactly how it works. It's very simple. It's got a little A-frame at this end, a flat surface here, and this is Formica covered, so it's reasonably smooth, and there's a hinge arrangement there, and at this end I've got a piece of wood that goes all the way across, and you may have noticed that this piece has a cutout section here, and that is to accommodate the end of the fence, which on the BS11 family of bandsaws has this piece that sticks down here. And then this piece of wood is wider than the table bit itself, and there are a couple of securing bolts in there. These are normal 8mm bolts. I've had to increase the flat on two opposing sides in order to get them to go through this T-track, which I've fixed on here. Now, cast iron is very easy to drill. This was a piece of leftover T-track which was from Incra via the Woodworkers Workshop a long time ago. It's got 4 screw holes in this length, and so I just clamped it on there, drilled through the cast iron, and then put some little bolts there. Now, in order to get this on, one has to line up the flattened faces so that they go into the T-track. Line it up like so, and then we'll do this next one, and that's it. And once that's in position, one can then tighten up these wing nuts. So that's now secure. And then remember the stay that we had at the very beginning? Well, this now comes into its own again. It goes into different holes this time, like so. This now is all nice in a straight line. And so I can pass long bits along without any problem at all. Well, there you have it. Those are the extra items I wanted to show you with the BS11-INV bandsaw. I particularly like this bit of scroll work, actually. I'm rather proud of that. Now remember, if you want the plans for the table extension, they are available free of charge, but I must have your email address. Thank you very much for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.